The alien invasion, Lora and Elias' bloody encounter. Elias had always been fascinated with the thought of life beyond our planet. As a young boy, he would spend hours gazing up at the stars, dreaming of the unknown worlds that lay just beyond his reach. As he grew older, this fascination only intensified. He read every book on extraterrestrial life he could get his hands on, and spent countless nights scanning the skies with his telescope, hoping to catch a glimpse of something beyond this world. It wasn't until he met Lora that his dreams became a reality. Lora was a girl unlike any he had ever met before. She was smart, beautiful, and just as passionate about the mysteries of the universe as he was. They spent countless nights together, exploring the stars and discussing the possibilities of what might be out there. One night, Elias and Lora were sitting in the backyard, scanning the skies for anything unusual. Suddenly, they saw something shoot across the sky, leaving a trail of shimmering light behind it. Elias couldn't believe his eyes. He had never seen anything like it before. As they watched, the object began to descend, touching down in a nearby field. Without hesitation, Elias and Lora hopped in their car and drove towards the spot where the object had landed. As they got closer, they could see that it was some kind of spacecraft, unlike anything they had ever seen before. As they approached the ship, they could see strange markings etched into the metal. Elias couldn't read them, but Lora could. She translated the markings, telling him that the ship was of alien origin, and that it had come from a distant planet somewhere out in the universe. Without really thinking about it, Elias and Lora climbed up the ladder of the ship, exploring the inside. The inside of the ship was like nothing they had ever seen before. Everything was sleek and metallic, with flashing lights and strange instruments. They wandered through the corridors, trying to make sense of it all. Suddenly, the ship lurched and began to vibrate. Elias stumbled, nearly falling down. Lora grabbed his arm, steadying him. "What's happening?" he yelled. "I don't know," she yelled back. "We have to get out of here." The ship began to rise, soaring up into the air with incredible speed. Elias and Lora were thrown backwards, tumbling down the corridor. They finally came to a stop as the ship broke through the atmosphere and hurtled toward space. For hours, they were trapped in the ship, hurtling through the void of space with no idea of where they were going or how they would get back home. They watched as stars and galaxies passed by in a blur, sights that they had only ever seen through their telescopes. Finally, the ship slowed and began to descend once again. When it touched down, Elias and Lora stumbled out of the ship, breathing in the fresh air of an alien planet. They were amazed at what they saw. The landscape was like something out of a dream. It was otherworldly and bizarre, with strange plants and animals they had never seen before. As they explored the planet, they began to realize that they were not alone. There were other beings on this world, creatures that were unlike anything they had ever seen before. They were tall and thin, with strange, elongated limbs and huge, black eyes that seemed to bore into their souls. At first, Elias and Lora were fascinated by these beings. They tried to communicate, using hand signals and other gestures. But the creatures seemed uninterested. They simply stared at the two humans with their unblinking eyes, as if waiting for something. It was only after several days on the planet that things began to go wrong. Elias and Lora began to feel strange, like something was inside of them, growing and spreading. They both started to have horrific nightmares, filled with images of the strange creatures and the ship that had brought them here. And then one night, Elias woke up to find one of the creatures standing next to his bed. It was staring at him with its huge, black eyes, and in that moment, Elias realized he was not here by choice. He screamed, waking Lora up. But it was too late. The creatures had surrounded them, grabbing hold of them with their long, bony fingers. It was only then that Elias knew the truth. They had been brought here as unwilling test subjects, to be poked and prodded and studied in ways he couldn't even imagine. For weeks, they were held captive by the creatures, subjected to tests and experiments that made their skins crawl. They tried to escape, but it was no use. The creatures were too powerful, and seemed to know their every move before they even thought it themselves. And then one day, Elias woke up to find that Lora was gone. He searched frantically for her, but she was nowhere to be found. He asked the creatures what had happened to her, but they simply stared at him with their soulless eyes, watching him as if he was some kind of lab experiment. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, as Elias languished in captivity, waiting for some kind of rescue that he knew would never come. He was alone, trapped on an alien world with creatures that seemed intent on using him for their own sinister purposes. And then one day, as he was sitting in his cell, he heard a sound outside. It was a sound he had never heard before, a loud, low rumbling that echoed through the walls of his cell. Suddenly, the door burst open, and the creatures were thrown backwards by some unseen force. Elias looked up, dazed, and saw a group of humans charging through the doorway, wielding weapons and screaming at the creatures to get out of the way. It was a rescue team, sent to find Elias and bring him home. He stumbled out of the cell, his legs weak from weeks of captivity. He saw the creatures rushing towards him, their long fingers reaching out to grab hold of him again. But the rescue team was ready and waiting, and they blasted the creatures with their weapons, sending them staggering back. They led Elias to the spaceship that had brought them here, and together they made their way back to Earth. Elias was a changed man. He had seen things that no one should ever have to see, and he knew that his fascination with the unknown had brought him to the brink of madness. When they landed back on Earth, he walked away from the team without a word. He knew that he had to put this behind him, to move on from the trauma that he had endured. But he couldn't forget Lora, the woman he had loved, the woman who had been taken from him by creatures beyond our world. He vowed that one day, he would return to that alien planet, and he would find her, no matter what it took. But something in his heart told him that he might never see her again, and that the creatures that had taken her were far more powerful than he could ever imagine. He was left with nothing but nightmares, memories of a horrific trial that had nearly cost him his sanity. And somewhere in the universe, the creatures waited, watching, biding their time, knowing that they would always be one step ahead.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and tell us what you think in the comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.